Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. Today we are here with Suzanne Jauchius in person.
It's
wonderful to have you here. She is a psychic intuitive and she uses her talents to help people clarify and just counsel them and have them really live into a great future. And it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited. And today actually we're going to be discussing her new memoir called You Know Your Way Home. And I will tell you, I've had a chance to read through this and it is compelling. Like not just who you are and what you do, but the way you write is so beautiful.
Oh,
and
thank you.
You've born your soul here. And it's amazing. And the first thing that everybody always wants to ask anybody who is psychic, before I go into that, just a little bit of business real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to participate in the conversation, use the hashtag BWPresents, or you can use the Google Hangouts app and send in your questions, and be sure to like us on YouTube. So, okay, my question, question. When did you first find out that you were psychic?
Mm-hmm. Well, two things. One is I remembered the future. So when you're a little kid, you're
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years old, you don't have any concept of sort of the future. So I would remember things. Remember when this happened or when that happened, and no, that never happened. And then a few weeks later, it would happen.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought it was my memory.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then I'd have dreams that came true. And I'd talk about that. And,
Like what?
right off the top, I can't remember.
Well, I remember in your book you were talking about you had a dream, or you remembered your sister's bed catching on fire.
Yes, that happened. Yes.
Yeah, and it hadn't.
And hadn't.
Yeah, and then it was like weeks later.
It did.
Some sort of electrical
smoldered.
short.
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was for sure. And then I'd go to birthday parties, and I'd get blindfolded to play, pin the tail on the donkey, and I could always see where the tail went.
Oh my goodness.
So of course I was admonished at some point by my mother, who was embarrassed apparently about that, and told me that I could go to the next birthday party if I promised not to bring home all the prizes.
Oh no.
Because I always brought the prizes home.
Oh, that's so hard as a little kid.
It was
wanting
really hard
to play the games and yeah. But so it's just kind of always been a part of you, and
It has.
and you just kind of been discovering what that has been as you've grown up, and
Mm-hmm.
even just what it is, because as you mentioned many times in your book, which is to me it's wonderful to give us the setting around where you are in time. Even at that point in time, there was not a lot known about
No, there
psychics.
certainly wasn't.
Nobody was really talking about it. So
Yeah.
how did you figure out, like, who was the first person that you could reach out to give you some guidance in this?
Honestly, it wasn't a person. It was a book called In Cold Blood. And it was, I'm sorry, it was The Boston Strangler. I've got my books mixed up. It was The Boston Strangler. And in that murder investigation, the Boston police used a Dutch psychic named Peter Herkos. And the way he worked was he held objects that belonged to the murdered women and saw pictures. And intuitively, I knew I could do that. And so I just started playing with it. And people would come back, but you told me about that trip to San Francisco happened, and now my friend wants you to hold her watch. And so what I do is called psychometry.
Okay.
And it's the ability to hold some piece of jewelry or car keys or something and see pictures. And so that's what I started doing, just based on the Boston Strangler. Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's an interesting place.
Strange
to
way to enter. But back in those days, it was Jean Dixon, it was Ruth Montgomery, Edgar Casey. There were no bookstores in Portland that had metaphysical books. So it was hard.
Yeah.
I remember, myself included, reading a metaphysical book, but covering it with a paper bag so that no one could see what you were reading. I mean, it was that bad. It really was.
It's almost like when people read romance novels or things, they try to hide the cover.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you've chosen to do with your abilities. And I know that from reading your book, I feel like I've jumped into your life a little bit, which is amazing. But simultaneously, I feel like I know so much about you already. But as you were growing up, it was not a great thing for you to be able to do. And even in part of your book, it seemed like your abilities disappeared completely. I'm guessing they didn't actually disappear, but you just kind of hid them away.
Well, it was uncomfortable and awkward, I think, for the people around me. Again, if society didn't have an acceptance of it, more than once, my mother actually told me, please don't tell people what you do. And
really?
So that, yeah.
Even after you'd grown up and,
oh, yes.
been successful and people were coming to you for guidance.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a difficult idea, a difficult concept for some people to kind of get a hold of and wrap their minds around. I kind of split off. There was the me that was trying to be what everyone wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And then there was the other me that was craving more.
Yeah.
I read everything about Edgar Cayce, and anything I could get my hands on about other psychics. But basically, I just did it.
Well, and you mentioned many times different people in your life, different husbands, other people, they would find stuff that you'd done, like a journal that you'd written or books that you'd read, and they'd throw them away or even burn them. How did you get past that to really embrace your psychic abilities?
Honestly, it took years, and I might add years of therapy to finally just stand still in it. And I had an amazing therapist who kept mirroring me back to me and saying, Suzanne, you're a psychic. You need to go be that.
Wow. And
when you don't have that mirror, especially as a child, when you're told, don't do that. And for me, I just became painfully shy as a kid. I didn't know how to be. And so, it was, I think I say in the book, the seeds of codependency. But, okay, you need me to be that? I can be that. You need me I'll be that. So I really, tried to be accepted and acceptable.
Yeah.
The whole time knowing that there was this other deeper spiritual, metaphysical stuff available to me and going on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we could talk about your life as a psychic until there's so much that's so fascinating there, but your life itself, just growing up, beyond, the extra stuff that came with being a psychic, you went through quite a bit.
Yeah.
As I was reading, your relationship with your mother seems to be one that has really, as you even or have already alluded to, it was very challenging for you. And so it has, obviously things haven't changed that much, but can you talk a little bit about what was the relationship with your mom? How did that impact you? How did that get you to be who you are today?
Well, I don't want to sit here and point fingers at her necessarily because, really it was a sort of a societal thing, but just that lack of acceptance. And, going into the whole dysfunction of that family life, nothing was ever good enough. And, she had her own ideas of what I needed to be when I grew up, Apparently it was married. And I did that really well.
5 times, right?
5 times, yes. By the time I was 34.
Wow. I'm 30, so.
Yes. Well.
Wow. And I also have to ask, Banner.
Oh.
Your horse.
My horse. Yeah.
And horses seem to be a huge thing in your life overall. What is it that draws you to them?
I think, especially looking back when I was younger, I really fled to my horse and was able to sort of, leave everything behind when I was riding. It's an amazing relationship to have an animal that kind of carries you into a different place.
Literally carries you, yeah.
And so he really saved my life. And when you have a relationship with an animal, I remember going out and crying and stroking his neck, and he'd nuzzle me, and it's like he knew. So there was that bond, and he really did save my life in many ways when I was young.
Yeah, when you bought him yourself.
I did. I babysat and I bought him.
He really was your horse, your friend, it sounded like.
Yeah, I got him when he was 9 months old.
Yeah. Well, and combined with, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call it social awkwardness, but the challenge of being in society with your abilities as a child and not really knowing where the line was necessarily between reality and what you have the skills to see. You also moved around a lot.
A lot.
So you just had a lot of different things that were almost working against you.
And when I've had readers tell me this too, that have moved around a lot. But when you every time you have to pick up and go to a new school, I think we moved a dozen times between kindergarten and 5th or 6th grade. And every time you pick up and move, you can't connect with people. You can't make you can't make relationship. And you just pick up and leave. So there was that piece of the theme.
Well, you mentioned that you were even jealous of your sister because by the time your sister was born, or by the time she went to school, you guys had settled and were done.
And she got to go through all 12 schools all 12 grades in the same district, and
same friends, same everything.
Yeah.
Did you stay in contact with people from the different schools?
No,
because you did say that you'd moved back. Like there was a school that you were at, and then you guys ended up moving back.
We finally did move back to my familiar neighborhood.
Is that the one where you stayed? I can't remember. Did you stay there after you moved back?
Yes, I got to stay through my senior year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's a lot of interesting characters that come in and out of the story, and I'm not going to remember his name off the top of my head, but he, you met him through your parents. He was a pilot, and he came, and it seemed like he would. What is his name? I'm sorry.
Well, in the book, his name is Charles.
Oh, okay. Charles. Yeah.
And yes, that was, he proclaimed to be having studied with Tibetan monks, and he was a hypnotist, and he could do some amazing things with hypnosis, and I was really beguiled. I was just drawn in, and as you said, earlier, you asked if there were any mentors. I guess I saw him as my first mentor.
That's how it read in the book. It definitely felt like you were drawn to him, and
his wife.
A hint of something
was.
not so good.
Not so good.
Yeah.
So,
But you've had the experience you had where you were predicting you were flying. You were supposed to go for a touchdown.
A touch and go.
Touch and go flights, and the fun of that, and then the not so much fun at the end.
When we crashed.
When you crashed, yes. But you've seen that.
Yes, I saw it beforehand.
How do you? Are there other times in your life where that's happened? And how did you still go up in that plane?
Well, what's hard?
How did you still go?
What's really hard, and I know you don't have children yet, but once you become a mother and have children, there's that mother's intuition about things. Well, when you add to that you're kind of psychic, you learn that there's an anxiety that comes up about certain things, but maybe I'm just anxious. Maybe it's really nothing to worry about. And so being able to know the difference between, no, this is something that's going to happen versus, mother's anxiety, And that's kind of where I was. You got to remember, I was only 20, I think it was 20. And I wasn't really practicing psychism at that time. And so I just knew, but I knew the minute we got in that plane, right out here at Eagle Flightways.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes from here.
That something wasn't good. Something wasn't good. And they just kept reassuring me, no, it's okay. But I have to tell you, out of that experience, and I believe I write about it in the book, when we knew we were going to crash, the pilot was it was 110 in Reno that day. I mean, it was really hot. And so when it's that hot, there's no lift. And so he was porpoising the plane, trying to keep it up, and yet, we crashed anyway. So we missed the runway, we came in short. But just before we crashed, and all four of us later talked about this, there was a fifth presence in the plane. I get chills talking about it. There was a fifth presence, and this peace came over all four of us. We just kind of, and we knew it was going to be okay. And to this day, I think there was an angel in the plane with us, in the cabin with us. But we all felt it.
Yeah. When you describe how close you were to like a deep ditch, or
the ravine was right there. And the runway lights before you get to the actual runway, the strobes, that bring you in, were one of them we narrowly missed.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was quite it was quite frightening and quite a miracle at the same time. I don't like to fly.
I was going to say, do you still fly?
I don't like to fly. I will if I have to. But
I can imagine it would be a little, yeah.
But I knew when we got in the plane that day that it wasn't going to make it.
Wow. So I'm going to pause and just remind everyone that yes, you actually do have the opportunity to receive your own copy of You Know Your Way Home. This page turner, I have to say, it's amazing. And today we are offering it for 40% off. So it's actually only $9, and it's an autographed copy. It's a great deal. And you can go to www.beyondword.com/Jauchius, Jauchius. I'll spell it again just because it's a different name. Jauchius.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I was so enthralled by it, and I tend to not read memoirs, so it was a new thing for me.
Experience.
So how, and again, we've kind of spoken to it a little bit, but how exactly has being a psychic impacted the different aspects of your life, in particular, like your marriages?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
finding someone that gets it is really hard.
Yeah.
And my story tells about that struggle of fitting but not fitting, and wanting to do the right thing but not really feeling it from in here.
Mm-hmm.
And in all honesty, I was struggling with my own inner journey and didn't have a clue. But at some point along the way, I met an amazing therapist. She was actually an addiction therapist.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't have an addiction, but my friend, kept talking about how fabulous this woman was, and so I finally went and saw her, and that's where I believe I was able to actually integrate all of me, so that I could actually begin to function from my real self, all of me, and not be separated off or compartmentalized. And she used to say to me, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could live this seamless life where there aren't any categories or boxes.
It's all you.
It's all you.
Yeah.
And when she said that, the seamless life, I'm like, oh yes, And so from that point on, I have to say, I've lived my life. It is who I am. And there was a time when people would meet me and I'd be introduced to them, and they go, oh, what do you do? And I'd go, yeah, I could. And now when I introduce to people, they say, well, what do you do? And I say, I'm a psychic. And what's fascinating about that is watching them take a couple steps back, either physically step back, or you can feel them energetically step back.
Yeah.
And it's still there, but I own it now.
I have to admit, when we brought you on as somebody for me to interview, I was I was nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nervous because there's things that, well, I think like everybody, we're all like, oh, I don't want you to tell me that one thing that I already know, but I don't want somebody else to tell me it.
It doesn't work that way, thank goodness.
Okay.
Now, there was a time when it might have,
Really?
when I was younger and not knowing, what was going on. Honestly, I think I was incredibly empathetic. I could feel the feelings of other people. I could pick up on the vibes in the room. My goodness, that's what made me so good at being whatever anybody wanted me to be.
Yeah, you could tell exactly what they wanted, and you could just slide right in there.
Right. Yeah. And again, I just refer back to my therapies a lot because it did save my life. But when I learned to set boundaries, Carolyn, my therapist, said, it might help if you set a boundary. And I'm like, what's a boundary? And she goes, that's a good question.
That is a good question. What is a boundary?
So when I started setting boundaries, what happened was I began to feel myself setting those psychic boundaries. And I don't pick up on people anymore. I made a deal with whatever this energy is, that the only time I pick up is when I'm in my office, and the psychic's in.
Good. Well, that's got to be.
Or on the radio.
Yes.
When callers call in.
Yeah.
But so in other words, I learned to sort of to control it. It doesn't have to run you. You know, you can control it.
But you have to.
But
learn
you have
how
to be.
do that.
You have to be mindful that it's okay to say no. It's okay to not go there. Even when you feel that pain of the other person, it's okay to step back and just nod your head in understanding and not go,
Well, it's such good advice for everybody too, because even people who are not psychic or have really great empathy, it's creating boundaries for yourself. I know I don't do that.
No, it's so important.
Incredibly important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like to tell people is, a doctor doesn't go around with a stethoscope listening to everyone's heartbeat. It's the same.
Yeah. I have the same fear with doctor friends, though. I'm like, don't look at me too close. I don't want you to say anything. It's like, don't inspect me. Don't listen to my cough. Yeah, it's wonderful to have those boundaries because just exactly as you
life-saving.
Well, I've always been one of those kinds of people who kind of tries to make themselves what people want because that always made things easier. Or not.
Until it doesn't work anymore.
Until it doesn't work. Yeah. It's not really true to who.
Right. And I thought I was dying. I really did. When all of that quit working for me, I was 42 years old, and I thought I just wanted to die.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's when I took that courageous step and made that phone call, and my life changed.
So what is the thing that really jolted you that Carolyn said to you?
Well,
one of many things, I'm sure, but that first one that
the biggest jolt was when we got done with our first session, and I said, well, I'd like to come back and see you. And she went, she said like this, and she said, well, she goes, I don't know if I want to see you. What? And I looked around to make sure she was certified, certificates on the wall. And she goes, well, you have a lot of problems. I'm like, well, that's your job. And she said, I said, well, like what? And she goes, well, to begin with, you have a relationship addiction. And here's the deal. If we're going to work together, you're going to sign this contract with me. And these are the 3 things you will do. And she named the 3 things. And one of them was I had to admit that I was 50% of the problem in my life because I wanted to blame everybody else.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and that was so hard, but I knew that I had to say yes to it. And so when I finally agreed, and went, she scheduled my next appointment. But
what was that like for you to accept?
It was really hard.
It's so easy for us to just become like, oh, well, yeah, he's just that way, and if he changed, everything would be better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It just doesn't work.
Why not? So were you able, so when you started taking on, your 50% of the responsibility in relationships and everything else that was going on in your life, did you find that your psychic abilities kind of either helped or expanded because
they got
you
clearer?
Weren't just like throwing everything on everyone else?
That's a great question. They actually got clearer. And one of the things I realized is I was, well, we all do this to some degree, but I was no longer projecting into my readings what I thought people wanted to hear or what I may have experienced based on what they were going through.
Yeah, the things that you have in your head.
The projection quit. And the pictures started getting clearer. So yes, absolutely.
Were you ever scared by your abilities?
Not really, not scared. I've been in some pretty scary situations, but I've never been scared by them.
Okay.
No.
And coming from somebody who's never had that kind of ability, to me, it would almost be frightening to be able to see.
It's so unfortunate to me when I hear people say that, because it's such a natural part of who we are. And it makes me sad that for whatever reason.
I want to make you sad.
That's a projection.
Okay.
And you're empathizing too much.
I am.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Get your boundaries up.
Got
it. It makes me sad that that people are afraid of something that's so natural, and that it's come up through society, either through the church or through God only knows what. That stuff is not good. It's the work of the devil. It's unnatural. It's so natural. It's one of our senses. It's a sixth sense. It's valid. It makes me sad that people get scared of it.
Yeah.
And I always urge people that are really having their own experiences to please journal, and keep a journal of what you're maybe experiencing in dreams or even in day consciousness. You might get a flash of something. It's like, write it down just for fun.
Do you believe everybody is a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Even you just saying that, I'm all of a sudden like, oh, maybe I am.
You just got to pay attention.
Okay.
And that's another thing I like to say is, 50% of being psychic is paying more attention.
With the boundaries, too.
With the boundaries,
sure.
Yeah. But I got to tell you a quick, if I may.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
A quick story on my granddaughter. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter, and but at the time she was 7. She was in 2nd grade, and I had gone to pick her up. It was Halloween, and she was dragging this heavy grocery bag, and I'm like, honey, what do you got in there? Oh, it's a pumpkin. I won it. And
she won it?
She won it. And I go, Mom, my goodness, it was huge.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, how did you win it? And she goes, well, we had to guess how much it weighed. And it was, 17 pounds. And how many seeds? 347. And I guessed it. And I go, oh, you were close? And she goes, no, that's how much it was. And I sort of stood back, and I'm like, well, how did you know that? And she goes, Grandma, I have a really good memory.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, no, it begins.
Have you talked with her about it at all?
Yeah, she and my grandson both are they're mildly interested. Mm-hmm. But it's really what got me started writing the book. Mm-hmm. Is, I had this idea that I would do this journal for my grandchildren, because they both asked me, well, what are you reading in that room when people come? Do readings. And so I thought, it would be so cool if I just wrote it all down. And I envisioned and I did it all longhand. And I envisioned putting it in a leather binder and tucking it away in a trunk in the attic. And someday when I was long gone, they'd stumble upon it. And they'd have this enlightened moment, that this is who Grandma was. And instead, people wanted to read it, and it got published.
Fantastic. So, well, we do have a viewer question. I'm just looking down here. I have my little handy little iPad since we're here in person. So can you, given what you just said, can you recommend ways for parents to encourage a psychic child to use their gift?
Honestly, I think the most important thing for a parent because we're all psychic, is to just be validating. I trust your intuition. Validate it. I do not believe in promoting psychic kids, because I think it sets up a bad thing later on down the line. Ego gets involved and all that. So what we want to do is just validate for them that yes, it is possible to have dreams that come true. Or yes, you were absolutely right. I have a lot of clients right now who are giving me feedback about their children or grandchildren who are actually seeing spirits. I had a gal call me recently, and her 12-year-old grandson came trolloping down the stairs one day, and she was sitting on the sofa, and he stopped in his tracks, and he goes, "Whoa!" And she goes, "What's the matter?" And he goes, "Grandma's sitting there." And it just stopped him in his tracks. And he had never met Grandma. She died before he was born.
But he knew it was
and
her.
he knew, and he saw the little dog that was hers too with him. Oh. And I hear that a lot. I'm having a lot of people tell me that their kids are seeing. I think the veil's thin. As well, in the book, I talk about doing sweat lodge with Martin Highbear, who was a Lakota medicine man here in town, and he said, the veil is very thin. He said, there's so many begging to be born on Earth right now because it's the most exciting time to be alive, and that the veil is very thin. We're going to start seeing more and more into, through the veil.
It's interesting that you say that because it does feel like right now, and I know a lot of people feel it, things are moving, things are changing so quickly, and it feels like a very exciting time because you look back at history and it seemed like things were just slower.
Sort of trudged along, yeah.
Yeah, and we come up with lots of reasons for technology or just how quickly and easily people can interact with each other, and that is causing some difference.
Certainly a lot of it, yeah.
But it's a spiritual aspect as well.
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, and you started talking about Martin Highbear, and that's like a whole nother chapter of your life. Up until you first started seeing Carolyn, your life was filled with abuse, with neglect, and all sorts of really challenging things for anybody.
In my attempt to be normal.
Yes. We all try to be normal. It's like, what is normal? Does normal actually exist? But then, so you started meeting with Carolyn, and then things changed. And who were the people that really, like after that really had a huge impact, besides her, obviously? You mentioned, you talk about quite in detail Ira. And he was very, very important for you.
Yes, he was.
How did you meet him? Who was he?
Well, he was kind of a mystery man for a long time, but I would walk my dog to the park every day, and I'd see this man running. And one day I walked into a local coffee shop, and he was sitting there, and we started a conversation. And he was very crotchety, very direct. But he said, "You need to start running." And I'm like, "I don't run." And anyway, we formed a friendship. And through that friendship, I was able to meet Martin Highbear and do Sweat Lodge.
Yeah, I was the first one who introduced you to that. And one of the ones that you talk about in your book is when he first took you far out someplace. You were going to do a Sweat Lodge, and then at some point he just said no, and then you left.
He left, yeah.
Did he ever explain what?
Well, he never explains anything. But he said that he intimated that whoever was leading that particular Sweat Lodge would have brought in too many stone people, and I would have gotten burned. He said it would be too hot for you. Wow. And so we left. But then you were able to have one with him. Yes, he had permission from Martin Highbear to have the Sweat Lodge on his property in Martin's altar. And I got to sweat with sun dancers, which was just amazing. Sitting there listening to 7 or 8, drums, but it was awesome. But it was about 9 months that I was able to sweat, and then Martin died, and he was quite old when I met him. But what a wonderful experience for me. What I gained, I think, from that, 2 things. One was and I start my book with this, Home Atakuyasin, all my ancestors.
That's how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Home Atakuyasin. And all my ancestors, they called the ancestors in to sweat. And you just get this sense of them lining up in you. Mm-hmm. And then the other is that this earth that we live on is truly alive. I mean, truly alive. It's a living being. And from Sweat Lodge, I really gained that understanding and that a new relationship, I think.
That's amazing.
With our mother.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm paused because I want to just make sure that everybody knows how they can get your book. Again, 40% off, $9, an autographed copy of You Know Your Way Home. You Know Your Way Home. And that is at www.beyondword.com/Jauchius, Jauchius. Be sure to go there and grab your copy right away. And then also, if you have questions for Suzanne, please be sure to send them in. Use the hashtag BWPresents, or you can also use the Google Hangouts app. So you're talking about sweat lodges and things, and I know as I mentioned before we even started the interview, there's been a lot of bad PR about sweat lodges and things like that.
That one happened down in Arizona.
Absolutely, but it sounds like what it is, like what is the intention of it is to bring you closer to Earth, your ancestors, who you are on a deeper level. This is my curiosity.
Yeah. Well, yes, the connectedness of all of it, I think is really, and the sacredness, the true sacredness. Between the rounds, they actually lift. There's 4 rounds, and they actually lift the leather doorway. It's a little lodge, and you can the steam goes up. You can see it going up, and I'll never forget one of the sun dancers my first sweat. He leaned over and he said, "Our prayers," and you get this sense of our prayers going up with the steam. And then he said, it's carried to Eagle, and Eagle takes them to the Great Spirit. And it was just this, it's so hard when we have our own spiritual experience, we simply can't put it into words for others. We have to have our own experience. And so I was cautious when I wrote about Sweat Lodge. For one thing, I didn't want to be disrespectful. It is to be respected. It's not for, honestly, it's not for white people. It's for Native Americans. But they allowed us into the lodge. They had permission to go into the lodge. You just have to respect your own experience while you're there. And so I was careful, but there were a couple of things I really wanted to share, and because I witnessed while I was there, about the connectedness. Yeah.
So, and all of this, it all kind of ties in with, your psychic abilities to some extent. It bridges that disconnectedness, I guess, that we feel like we have. So did sweating help you even further continue to develop your psychic abilities?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it. It absolutely did.
Yeah. That's incredible. I come from a Chinese background, and we always are talking about respecting our elders and knowing that our elders are out there
guiding us.
Exactly, and really honoring them. So it's interesting, even across such disparate cultures, there really is.
And High Bear said, all cultures used to sweat. They all did. But he said even I come from a Celtic background, being a Murphy at birth and Irish, and he said they sweat. Their sweats were in stone inipis, stone huts, and so I don't know. I've never done one, but he said that all cultures used to sweat. They knew the value of the sweat and how humbling and connecting it is.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I very much appreciate the fact that you did write about it, and you could tell it was incredibly respectful in your book, because it really did.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes to what that is, and how that creates that stronger connection, because everything you said really just reflect what you said in your book. So thank you very much from a reader's perspective for putting that in there.
Yeah.
And we do have another viewer question. Where it is? There it is. What? Oh my goodness, we have lots of viewer questions. What is a way where people can really connect with their psychic ability? Normal people can connect with their psychic ability.
Well, I think the biggest thing, again, is paying attention. But I urge people that want to connect to begin. I can only come from where I come from my own experience with it. But I urge people to connect with their dream life and keep a dream journal. Okay. Because our dream life is our psychic landscape, if you will. And so keeping the dream journal, if you can keep one for 3 months.
3 months.
3 months is all you got to do.
Okay.
Go back and reread it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll begin to see a thread. You'll begin to see maybe even some predictions.
Okay.
Yeah. So dream journal is what I urge people to do. And of course, meditate and kind of trust your imagination. The imagination is the pathway to intuition. We have to have our imagination. And when I first started doing readings, I even said, this could just be my imagination, but this is what I see. And then, of course, people would come back and go, it wasn't your imagination. But we got to honor, we have to give ourselves permission to sort of dally through imagination to get to intuition.
It's interesting that you mentioned the word imagination. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and looking at myself, and I feel like my imagination is kind of done.
Oh no, it isn't.
Not exactly, but I feel like there's a lot of grown-ups, adults, however you want to designate them, people of the older age, who are similarly, like, there's kind of like what use is imagination, or how do you reawaken that? Like, how do you even start?
Well, again, I think the dream journal is a wonderful way, because you get to play there. And what else is imagination, really? We watch children playing, in the imagination world. As adults, we don't go do that, but we do in our dreams. And so, keeping the dream world active and alive. And some people go, well, I don't dream. Well, I guarantee you, if you keep a dream journal beside your bed and you have an intention to remember your dream, within a period of time, you will. Now, the thing about dreams that's so interesting is when you wake up, lay really still, because if you move, the dream will go away.
They're gone.
Yeah.
It's the craziest.
It's very crazy.
Experience.
Yeah. And so if you just be still and, take notes in your head and then quickly jot even a word or sentence down, so that you can, because by noon you will have completely forgotten it. And so, having that available is just a wonderful tool.
Yeah, I remember, like, specifically in dreams, I'm like, this is so cool. I have to remember this when I wake up. I think I've even actually said to myself, of course I'm going to remember this when I wake up. This is so cool.
It's so big. Yeah.
It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
And I am one of those people who automatically, you say, keep a dream journal. I'm like, of what?
Yeah, well, you do. You keep an intention, and you'd be surprised.
Okay.
50% of spirit working with us is us saying, I want to work with you. It doesn't just fall out of the sky.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is. It's exactly like you were saying earlier. It's like the 50% responsibility.
Yeah.
Like in relationships with other people, in relationships
with your higher power,
whatever that is. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, now I'm really excited to go home and do that, I have to say. So we actually, so another viewer question. What is your opinion about suicide in terms of what happens after and what might predispose one to suicidal ideation?
Well, it's kind of a big question. I don't want to, what's the word when you give up a plot? You know what I mean. Spoiler. But this is a spoiler alert. My sister killed herself, and I have had amazing experiences with, through dreams, she's come to me in dreams, and she has shown me what happened after she died and where she is now and all of that. And so I do believe that, suicide isn't a sentence to hell, like some churches would like us to think. But I've got to tell you, every so often in a reading, I will be asked by a client to see if I could see like a brother or an uncle or somebody that crossed over, and so I'll just see if I get pictures from them. Mm-hmm. And one time I did get a picture from the man, and I said, he says he killed himself, and she goes, well, he did. And I said, oh, and so I said in my mind, how did that go for you? And he said, wherever you go, there you are. And I thought, that's got to be the truth. It just has to be. Wherever you go, there you are. And, you can be unhappy in your life and pick yourself up and move across the world, but you're still there. Yes. You're still there. Yeah. And so I also believe that life is a continuum. As above, so below. We've been told that by mystics in the Bible and all kinds of people that have supposedly, been there and come back. Is as above, so below. So you're just not going to get out of your problems by, taking your own life. However, you are going to get amazing help on the other side. Mm. And that, but there is a process. I don't think it's immediate meantime.
So I'm curious about what it is, not necessarily specifics, what you do with your clients, but what the abilities that you have. So in reading the book, what I saw is that you could kind of see into the future a little bit, but you can speak with people on the other side as well?
Well, I don't really advertise that, but yeah, my office to me is my sacred space. Mm-hmm. And when people come in with questions, I hear a response. And that was another thing when I was a kid. When someone would ask a question, I'd hear a response. I think I write about that. In second grade, they wanted to bump me up to third grade, and it's because I had an inner informant. I heard that response, So, if they ask a question, I'm going to hear a response. Mm-hmm. And if it's from the other side, then it's from the other side. And it's just, where it's coming from. But, sometimes they can be very specific, and I can look at that and see if I get a picture. Wow. I don't channel. I'm not talking to spirits. I get pictures. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just comes to you in images. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. And that's what our dreams do. Our dreams are pictures. Very vivid pictures sometimes. Yeah. So you learn your pictures, and then, sometimes you have what Carl Jung said, life is a dream. Mm-hmm. A leaf falling in front of you can be a message. Mm. But you've got to know what your dream language is, and that's what journaling does.
That's very interesting. Yeah. There are some things in terms of dreams, people always talk about this. If you see this in your dream, then it means this. And if you see this in your
dream, I think there's archetypes. Certainly the house, if you dream about a house, it's usually your body. If you dream about a car, it's your body. There's certainly certain archetypes. Mm-hmm. But, usually, and again, Carl Jung maintains that everything in a dream is about us. Yeah. Well, I have people call me and they go, Suzanne, I had a dream last night that you were in my dream and you were telling me blah, blah, blah. And I go, that's great. It wasn't me. It was your own psychic archetype. I became the archetype for your own psychic stuff. And so listen to it. And that's kind of fun.
That's really awesome, because I always looked at those. There's tons of books out there about that, and I've always looked at that kind of like, really? I mean, really? Mm-hmm. And just not really looked into it any deeper, but it's just looking at my dreams is almost nothing, perhaps something that other people, that has happened many, many times for other people, but also just something that comes from me. Mm-hmm. And it seems like really obvious to say now that I'm saying it, but at the same time, just it's all me. Mm-hmm. And it's all things that come from me, and yes, I can get input from others, but at the same time, it is all from me.
If you dream about leaky pipes, you may have a bladder infection. It's just that simple.
Good to know. So I want to take yet another opportunity to just mention to people, again, you can get your copy of You Know Your Way Home. And you can get it at www.beyondword.com/Jauchius, Jauchius. Be sure to go there, grab it, $9 for an autographed copy. And again, send your questions in using the hashtag BWPresents, or you can use the Google Hangouts app, and be sure to like us on YouTube. So one of the things that we kind of talked about doing a little bit, and I am curious and a little bit scared, but would you be willing to answer some questions for me?
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you got to remember that I'm going to say what I see. And,
okay.
This is kind of public.
That's okay. I've said a lot of things on this show, and they know lots and lots of things about me.
Mm-hmm.
So
what I need is your birthday.
Okay.
And I don't need the year.
Okay. My birthday is November 16th.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So question. The question that I'm kind of scared to ask. So I just got married.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And one of the things is it gonna go well?
That's a really loaded question.
I know, right?
So let's do something else.
Okay, something more specific.
No. If you don't mind,
sure.
Can you give me your husband's first name and birthday?
Yes.
Or will he be upset if we do this?
No.
Okay.
His first name is Steve, and his birthday is September 25th.
You're going to have a great marriage.
Oh, my goodness.
No, it's going to be great.
Okay.
But you have to lighten up.
Oh, my, yes.
Yes, don't you? You have to lighten up. You're a little too controlling. And if you go with the flow with him, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
He's really fun. That's why you married him.
Oh, my God.
So don't make him be something else. Right?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I have a moment. That's amazing. Thank you. You are so fast. You're like...
Oh, I'm pretty fast.
Right on it. That's amazing, because that is definitely, it's...
It'll be an issue until it's not.
Okay. Until it's not.
Stay with your own, needs and wants, and take care of yourself, and don't put your demands on him to be different.
It's boundaries there, too.
Boundaries.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Boundaries go both ways. Don't try and force your stuff on other people, and don't let them put their stuff on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. That's really like the main question for me.
Very good.
Yay!
And I just want your mother to know that there are children in about 3 years.
Thank you for the time. I swear, 1 year, or like 1 month after my marriage, and already my mother is asking me about kids. And I have an older brother who's already married, and I'm like, look over there, look over there. Oh my, thank you.
You're
very
so
much.
welcome.
I can't even tell you. It's like a huge weight off my shoulders. Well, and it reminds me of the place in your book where you went through. I don't have the same kind of past and the things that you went through. It was amazing, but you had a specific exercise that you did with your counselor that had you feel that weight come off as well. And it was the anger exercise.
Oh my Lord, yes.
Well, and so for me, I don't necessarily carry anger. I carry a lot of weight though, and then just you saying that to me, all of a sudden it's like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You're just not responsible for who he is. Yay!
What? Do I have to hold him?
Did she really say that?
But have you been able? Are you really able to hone in on that one thing for everybody, or for most people?
You mean when they come for readings?
Yeah. Or just in life, or as you've explored your ability and.
I've been doing this professionally for 24 years, 25 years, and yes. And the reading is really not about seeing the future as much as it is really being a good mirror, a psychic mirror, and validating others. What I've learned is when we're validated, we're empowered.
Yeah.
We go through life not getting validation. And that's my story. This is what happens when you don't get validated.
There were so many times like you'd say something and I'm kind of like, if your mother had just said, I love you, good job, this is great, what would your life have been like?
Yeah.
Or like your dad had stepped in or something. Like, it's just like, well, and as you mentioned before, it's like it's that awareness. It's for being completely aware, and everybody has their own stuff that they have to deal with, but having, a mom or even just a friend who would step in and just be aware of what's going on with you and really being over where you are and being aware of what's.
And I really felt, it really felt like I wasn't seen in the world. I was invisible.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you even said that you intentionally wanted to be
invisible. Yeah.
And
that's hard when you're 5'11".
It does make it a little more challenging. Well, I have to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Just that one little, maybe 1 minute snippet is just, you did exactly that. You mirrored my concerns. You saw just this little stuff, and it's little stuff.
Let it be fun.
Okay.
Please.
Why would I let it be fun? Okay. All right. I will. But thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for everything that you have shared in here, because psychic, whatever, person, just your life story is amazing, and the generosity with which you shared yourself in this book is really, it's wonderful.
It has been truly a side effect of the book, having readers call me and get in touch with me, thanking me for the to having the courage to be really brutally honest, because I told their story too, and I never in a million years expected that.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
We really are.
We really are all in this together.
So one last time, so everybody knows and remembers, you can get your copy of You Know Your Way Home, www.beyondword.com/Jauchius, Jauchius. Be sure to go and get it. It's 40% off. It's an autographed copy. You will just peel through this so quickly. You'll see yourself. You'll see your own psychic abilities. It's a great read. So thank you so much.
I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then next week, on same time, same place, we will have Terry Daniels. She is the founder and president of the Afterlife Awareness Conference, and she's going to come in, same as Suzanne, she's going to come in and sit here with me, and we're going to talk about what it's been like to be a part of such an incredible conference, to be the spearhead that kind of conference. So we look forward to having you here again, and be sure to like us on YouTube and send us any questions that you have. Thank you so much.